Session 2, excited. Yes, are we all excited? We're not exhausted after that long drive, Martin, and you've still got further to come.
Well, I've got 4 sessions or 3 sessions to do, starting at about 5:25 up till about 8:15, and then I've got to drive back up the road, and then I've got an Adobe session with Susan all day tomorrow in Aberdeenshire. So, and then I'm just going to sleep on Friday.
I was going to say that.
He's in demand, Pam. He's the man of the moment.
That's it.
Can't
hide talent. That's what it is, Martin. Can't hide talent.
I kept telling folk that when I was 18, but it wouldn't work. I was like, listen, I'm in demand. You can't hide my talent. And they were like, you jog on, son.
Love it. Right. Okay. So we've got about 10 or so, just over 10 people in. We're waiting on. I've got quite a few. Will we give it a minute or so? And whilst we're waiting, as always, because I'm only seeing so many numbers, so if you are here and you're sharing computer, can you please pop it in the chat just so that I know that you are with someone else? So that I make sure you get recorded on the register.
While we're waiting, Pam, if you've given any of the stuff that we spoke about at the last session, if you've given it a go, or you've had a wee shot of like Gemini or Adobe Express, anything, we'll be going into a wee bit more detail today with a couple of things. But if you've tried anything and you're wanting to share or rant or just kind of say, I tried this, it didn't work, share it in the chat and we'll see we'll collate them at the end and kind of see some of the things that have been going on. I'd love to hear if you've had a chance to use any of it. That would be good.
And I suppose, because the purpose of this is, so please do stick your cameras on and wave if you're putting stuff in the chat so that we know who it is that's saying it. Because, the purpose of this is to build, to have an opportunity to build the chance to talk with others and so that, people can get in. So hopefully, can get to know each other, not get in, because someone just emailed me there saying I can't get in. Sorry. So how well my brain is going today. So yeah, it would be good if you could just pop your camera on and stick it in the chat. I did have feedback from one person who said that they had used Gemini to create a presentation. So they said that was really, really helpful, but there were spelling mistakes. And I said, that's fine. If you open it in Google Docs, you can fix them. So I thought that was a useful tip. But yeah, no, they said that was helpful.
Silence.
Apologies, I can hear my door. I'll be back in 2 seconds.
You getting an Amazon delivery, Pam? So we'll give it a couple of minutes more, folks. And as Pam was saying, a couple of folk have tried things, but if you haven't, don't worry about it, because there's an opportunity. And it's just, it's absolutely, we haven't fully started yet, because we knew there was a couple of people. Big Week Scotland idea is brilliant, Sean. That's it's good for that kind of stuff. I was listening to a podcast on the way down as I was driving down the road, and what they were talking about was somebody who is taking like the YouTube videos that they watch on a regular basis, and kind of like if they're longer YouTube videos, firing the link into Gemini and asking it to summarize the key points from the video. And to be honest, that's where AI tools are really, really handy. It's kind of that especially the chatbot style ones. It's that summarization of, I do it for white papers, I do it for some of the documents that we have to read, that can be a wee bit long-winded at times. It's like, what do I need to know from this? And sometimes, especially with the Notebook LM, there's a couple of new features that you can add into it now, where it is you can actually say to it, this is my role, I am a teacher. What, from a teacher's perspective, from a teacher in Scotland, from a teacher in Renfrewshire, from a teacher in such and such a school, but as I am looking at that, what are the key things I need to know from this document, and that's brilliant. Kenny, I'd be really interested to hear what some of their feedback is, because we're going to be talking about a wee bit of the ethics today, so it's good to know in that kind of regard. Brilliant, yeah, and we'll go into a wee bit more detail with some of the Adobe Express stuff just now, just to show you from that ethical point of view, some of the things that we're looking at. Yeah, yes, yeah, it's great for that, Graham. As I say, obviously I use it for the F1 rules where I need to look at the things, but I think putting the flashcards up in class and having some of the sort of the key talking points and doing it as a quick, even as a quick lesson opener or a quick lesson plenary, and just saying, right, here's some of the things we've been looking at. Here's maybe a screenshot of the questions we've been answering. Fire that into Notebook LM during the lesson, and then see if they can give you some flashcard questions based on some of the stuff that we've been looking at. Brilliant. Sorry, Pam. I was waiting for you
That's
to get
exactly
your.
what the purpose of this is. Yeah, no, that was me yelling at my son. I'm
Was
glad
it
it
your
was
wind?
muted.
Was it your? I was going to ask.
It
Was it
was
your
mine
wind delivery?
actually. That was the problem.
Was
That's why I kept ringing the bell. No, you know, that is the whole point about having this conversation, and I suppose we should say where we're going. You mentioned we're doing Adobe Express today, but you know, from your comments, which I did say to you, we would take your comments from last time and we would use that to kind of hone where we're going for this session. So tonight, as Martin said, it's going to be about Adobe Express, but also going in a little bit more around the kind of bias, etc., that is part of AI, because a few people, that was one of our questions last time, did we do enough around that? And quite a few of you came back and said, no, we like to know a wee bit more. So that's kind of the purpose of where we're going to go to tonight. And that's good. I'm just reading all the different guided activities that people have tried and done the different things, which is great. So I'm going to stop talking because I can't breathe, and I'm going to pass over to Martin.
Thanks, Pam. Susan, is there anything you want to jump in with at this stage, or do you want to jump in at the end?
No, not at all. I put one slide in your deck, Martin, just as a wee surprise, so we can come to that at the end.
I did notice there was an edit. I know, and if it's let's see what we've got. Right, folks, I'm going to start to share my screen. Sheen window tab, AI Membership, session 2, Google Slides. Okay, so you should hopefully see my my slide deck there. Susan will man the chat, I think, with Pam as well. So if there's anything coming up, because I'm just on one device today, because as I say, I'm working. I'm in a school. It's a rare thing, but I'm in a school. So yes, thank you very much for coming back, and thank you very much for your continued participation in looking at, as Pam says, building this community of educators and the access to the AI tools that we have available to us via Glow. So some of the things that we're going to cover tonight are going to look at, we're going to go into a bit more of a deeper dive with Adobe Express. I realise because we've looked at a few different tools last time. We looked at Gemini, Notebook LM, Microsoft Reading Tools. We're going to focus a wee bit more time on Adobe Express. But I know that the ethical use of AI and the practices that are being shared at both a local authority and a national level, and from people who are using it across the board, it's important that we know exactly where we stand with this and what we can't do, and what are some of the potential pitfalls. So the fact that we have tools such as Gemini, Notebook LM, and Adobe Express in our schools, that just means that we have to think of some of these key considerations, right? We have to make sure that, as Pam said, the guidance for Renfrewshire Council is that no pupil information is uploaded into Glow and into these AI tools, and that's obviously a standpoint that we have as both the Glow team and DigiLearn Scott. It should be used for digital learning and teaching, the learning and teaching aspects of, you know, either pupil creativity or teacher productivity. There are a few things that we have to remember about the use of these AI tools, in that they can generate images. They can generate images of individuals, they can generate stories, they can generate stories about individuals. Obviously, the learners don't have access to some of the chatbot style features, such as Notebook LM and Gemini, but as we mentioned at the end of the last session, that is something that is potentially going to be coming. So we have to bear in mind. And there are obviously some of these things that we have to consider as teachers as well. What are our professional responsibilities? What do we have to remember? We have that professional integrity. All of these types of things that when we are using these tools, we need to know what might happen, what are the potential pitfalls, and what to avoid. So the main ethical considerations can fall into four main categories. So data privacy and security, that is the that's obviously the what you can upload, what you can't upload, and things of that nature. The bias, fairness, and equity. We know that chatbot tools do have the ability to create what we call hallucinations, but also the fact that some learners might not always have access to hardware that can run some of these tools. Luckily, tools like Adobe Express run in a browser, so it's a wee bit easier for us to give access to those types of AI tools. Academic integrity and critical thinking, that's obviously a key concern for a lot of people. Is AI going to be used to plagiarism and things of that nature? There are a couple of grey areas in this respect. The UK Copyright Office does have a standpoint on this, and that's their standpoint is anything created by anybody using AI is actually belonging to them, regardless of the data that it was used to train it on. However, SQA do have a sort of a standpoint on this right now, which is anything that has been generated by AI obviously can't be used as evidence of learning. So we also want to make sure that we are asking the right questions. I think I mentioned in the last session, as a former secondary maths teacher, or as I would sometimes say, a reformed secondary maths teacher. Obviously, if I can get an AI tool that helps a learner going through and helps their understanding, I'm happy with that. However, if I was in maybe another subject that has more essay style questions as part of their exam, and I ask someone a question and that question could be answered by AI, then there could be a question about whether that is the right type of question to be asking. We know that if we know sometimes the AI can be used to analyze pupil data, but we obviously are encouraging you. In fact, we're downright insisting that pupil data does not get entered into Adobe Express, into any of the AI tools whatsoever. We keep it for learning and teaching, generating images for learners, generating text, the stuff that they're doing, using Notebook LM to summarize key points, using Gemini to give lesson ideas. All of this is all within the acceptable realms. Taking anything that is tied to an individual or tied to a pupil and uploading that, we would say that is a no-no. The other thing that we would also say is that we all have professional judgment, and it's to encourage the use of that professional judgment. If you use Gemini to produce something, I think Pam had said that someone used it to produce a presentation, and the presentation had spelling mistakes, then it's obviously our responsibility to open that up into Google Slides or to some other presentation tool editor and fix those. We have to maintain that human element. We have to maintain that this tool is not a personal thinking assistant. It is a personal productivity assistant. It helps reduce the workload. It doesn't help add to it. It is to augment the work that we are doing rather than completely replace the way that we're looking at things. Just wanted to touch on those points. I have shared a document with Pam that she'll share with you. It just goes into a bit more detail about this. The main thing about ethical use of AI in Scottish in our classrooms is obviously making sure that we as the teacher remain at the heart of that. Right? We have always said that technology is used to enhance the learning and teaching. It's not used to replace any of that aspect. If we think of the ability to substitute a tool or to augment the work that we are doing, to enhance it, to take that technology, enhance the learning, and employ the methodologies within that, making sure that if we are using AI tools, if we are looking at the ways that they have been used to maybe summarize text or to quickly generate quizzes, we obviously have to have a level of oversight of that and making sure that we understand what is being shared, what is being said with what is being shared, whether the information has a hallucination, has a bias, maybe has slightly different data. The other thing to remember is Gemini within Glow isn't used to train the wider model. So there is that sort of safeguard within the Glow space where the data that we are using or the images that we might upload, images of ourselves and things of that nature, those images are not going to be used to train the model as it goes further. Even if you upload a document into Notebook LM, everything is done within the walled garden of Glow. However, the standpoint of both Renfrewshire, Education Scotland, and Scottish Government is that no pupil data should be entered into Glow. Seamless is for the tracking and monitoring. Glow is for the planning, learning, teaching, and the way that you sort of take that workflow and that assessment methodologies as we're looking at there. Right, I'll stop for a wee second. Are there any questions, comments, anything you want me to clarify? We're not done with the ethical point yet. We're going to go into a little bit more detail just in a wee second, but I just wanted to cover the sort of those 4 key areas. So data privacy and security, making sure that the stuff you're uploading, don't upload images of learners only, don't encourage learners to upload images of themselves, don't upload pupil data. Everything should be used as a resource creation tool. Bias, fairness and equity, obviously we are covering that by having everyone has access to Glow. We just have to make sure that if they are using the Glow tools, that they have a device that can suitably do that, either within school or giving them opportunities at home or within school to cover that. We are not encouraging learners to use any of these chatbots to produce any of their sort of academic National 5 higher qualification style work. What they can maybe do is summarise some of the key talking points, but they don't have access to that chatbot feature yet within Glow, so that's another thing to remember. And obviously ensuring that we use our professional judgment when it comes to the outputs that are coming from these AI tools, and that we double check anything that we share, anything we create before we share it. Pam, Susan, is there anything you think I've missed at that point or want clarification on?
Oh, all good. That's fab. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nope, all good. Thanks,
Susan?
Martin.
All good. No problems. Nothing in the chat as well?
Nope.
Awesome. Right. Okay. So one of the things that we have, image generation is obviously a big thing. That's the thing that we see. I'm finding more and more people are getting caught out by images that have been generated by AI. I mean, if the president of the United States and his wonderful mental faculties and the way that he is so on it, if he can be tricked by AI, any of us can be tricked by AI. So it's important to know the tools that we have available to us and what they're actually able to do. Now, Susan has put together a brilliant page on Glow Connect, all about the aspect within Google Gemini. You might have seen if you've went on to gemini.google.com. Let me just share that page very quickly. You might notice that when you're there and it loads up, there's a little banana that comes up. And it will say try our image tool. And you can see as a look at this, there's this create images and there's a wee banana next to it. That's because Google have created, and I've got this page on Glow Connect. I don't have this page. Susan has this page that she has created. That's a really great sort of knowledge hub that puts it all together. But it talks about appropriate uses of generative AI. It talks about what Nana Banana is. It's simply the nickname. It's someone coined it on social media. Google picked it up and they kept going with it. It essentially is what they call their Google Gemini image creation tool. It can do a lot. It can edit images. It can put text over them. It can add in different period settings. So it can be great as a starter image for a few things. It can also be quite good for humor and things of that aspect. So as a teacher, we have access to this, and that obviously creates that little bit of a grey area in terms of, oh, what if I upload an image of Susan and I turn her into a superhero? Would that be ethical or not ethical? You know, I could do that as fun. Obviously, that's a no-no unless I've asked Susan's permission. Or if I have a pupil within my class and I upload an image of them, that's just a no-no. And it's these types of consideration. And as Susan has sort of really succinctly put together on this page, it gives that sort of summarization of what the tool can be used for, what are some of the considerations, the versatility of the tool and some of the things that you can do, as well as examples at the bottom. So knowing, as they say, is half the battle. So knowing that Google Gemini can actually do quite a lot with image generation makes it sort of really quite, it can be fun, but it can also be useful. You know, so you can take an image of yourself and you can, you know, if you're doing a class quiz, for example, you could have an image of yourself up as the quiz master. Or, you know, Halloween is coming up, so there's an image that you could create to set a theme, to set a tone. Or while I was stopped in Dunblane getting my car charged, I took this image of a field and I had to add in a 16th century. This image has actually been cropped because, in fact, if I do this, this image has actually been cropped because I don't know how many 16th century, whoops, wrong one. It obviously didn't crop the full image because if you see there, let's bring it to the front. You can see the car parks there. So we've got a 16th century house in the background, but we've also got a Hyundai or a Kia Sportage and a field. So it didn't quite know to crop the image in that regard. But all I said to it was, and examples of this are on Susan's page, is make this field look like it did in the 16th century, add buildings and people that would be appropriate for Scotland during that time. So that could be a great way to create an image of, you know, maybe you're doing the Jacobites or you're doing something of that, you're doing some creative writing, adding that in, you know, using Gemini for that type of image creation can be, it can be a great way to sort of create starters and prompts for kids. Even down there, the 90s TV show that you didn't know you need, Martin. All I took was like a selfie of myself and just put in, make the person in this image a 1990s TV show character. Right, so you can have all of these kind of different approaches that you can take. Images of yourself, absolutely fine. Images of learners, a no-no. Susan.
Martin, this is maybe a good time
Hey.
to come in. That Graham's put a really good comment in the chat saying we really need to educate kids not to do this when they take selfies of themselves, their friends, when they use these kind of services. I mean, they're using these kind of services out of Glow, but it's so important we have these conversations around appropriate and responsible use.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And that is our responsibility as educators, is to talk about what appropriate use is within class. In fact, that was going to take me on to my next slide and talking about these types of things. Just because you can do something, doing it of yourself, absolutely fine, right? So if I take a selfie of myself and I put in the prompt, recreate this individual as a 16-bit video game character and place them in a level of a 2D 16-bit platform video game. Is that ethical or not ethical?
Ethical to some extent, because you're not saying which game and which whatever, and it's just you. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's of yourself. You're not sort of saying copyright and saying put me in Mario. You're not saying recreate me as a character from, recreate me as Superman. You're not using those types of things. So it is ethical, as you say, to an extent. It's of yourself. However, if I was to take an image of this young man and I was to say, turn this person into a 1980s yearbook character, make them a nerd with glasses, a pocket protector, and a bad haircut. Personally, I still think he looks adorable, but that's possibly because I'm slightly biased. That's obviously not ethical, because that's me taking an image of someone that, one, I haven't got their permission for, even though I do have permission because I had to take the picture. But it's I, as a learner, wouldn't take a picture of someone else. Well, we know they will, but we need to educate them about why that is not what they're meant to do. They aren't meant to take images of people without their permission. They're certainly not meant to put them in. So you could create a scenario where you take an image of someone at home, you take an image of someone that you get their permission, but you create a lesson where you talk about the ethics of whether this is. Again, in the exact same way that I have done here, I've created this image of Toby, and it's done as a scenario to show whether this is ethical or not ethical. So knowing that just because you can do a thing doesn't mean that you should do a thing. That's a key conversation that we should be having with our learners, especially when we know the number of deep fakes that are out there. We know how easy it is to create different deep fakes. We know how easy it is to put things in and create them in different ways. And luckily, within Adobe Express, which as we say we're going to look at a little bit of detail just now. Within Adobe Express, learners can, and I'll take you on a demo of this. So I spoke about image generation last time, and I'm going to go into a bit more detail with the image generation and some of the ways that you can join it all together. But even though learners can take an image, it doesn't necessarily create a perfect representation of them. But that is still a kind of an ethical no-no. We wouldn't encourage them to upload images of themselves and say create a just in this way. If I show you, so let's go to Adobe Express. So let's share this tab, and I'll take you through the process, because we've got 20 odd minutes, 25 minutes, almost half an hour to go through this. So we've got loads of time to go into the way that Adobe Express works in this regard, and the way that we can do some other aspects of it. It won't be as whistle stop as it was last time. So again, we know that these tools can be used in this particular way, but we have guidance where we say not to do this. And as I say, with the Google Gemini Nano Banana stuff, Susan has created that page, and we've got the sort of the guidance that we're talking about here about what not to do with image generation in Adobe Express. So this will directly impact learners. You'll notice that, or you might have noticed that when I go to create something, I can either create something from a blank template, or I can create an image, right? Generate an image using the generative AI. Other generative AI models pull in images from across the web. The images that have been used to train these, there is an ethical grey area. Meta is a good example of this. And for those of you that don't know, Meta is a company that owns WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, and they have their own version of an AI chatbot. But what they have done, you might have seen it in the news, is they have taken written work, written books, novels, text help, manuals, all these types of things, and they put them into Meta AI and trained them without asking permission of the author. So a lot of authors are beginning to sue Meta because the data that has been used to train that has been done without permission. Gemini, Google has scraped the web because they've just used their search data. So essentially, if anyone has agreed to put their content on the open web for search optimization, then Google has been able to train Gemini with that. Meaning anytime we ask Google Gemini to create an image, it's using its repository of knowledge. Now, for our learners, when they use Adobe Express, they are only using the Adobe content library, the Adobe stock images. It is not going out and using content that hasn't been paid for. So when they are generating images using Adobe Express, they are doing so copyright free. So that ethical grey area about creating an image and creating it in a 16-bit video game style, there is no ethical consideration there because they are not breaching copyright because they are using the Adobe stock images library rather than using some of the external ones that publicly available chatbots are able to do. There are multiple ways that we can add in images. We can obviously just generate one here. I could type in anything I want. I could say space monkey in a solar system. Something like that, even though I said monkey. That just shows how good my typing is. And that will just generate an image. So that's just a quick image generation tool, right? Just does it very, very quickly. I can add more things into this, or I can think about it in a wee bit more of a structured way, in a little bit more of a coherent way, where I would actually say, if I'm going to generate an image, it's going to be for a particular purpose. It's part of the lesson I'm teaching, it's part of the content I'm creating, it's part of the work I am doing. I'm not just doing it flash in the pan and saying, right, you've got a wee bit of spare time, go and create an image and just fill your boots. We are not encouraging that in any way, shape or form. So that image generation, it's just an easy way to do it. You can clearly tell that they are AI generated images.
Martin.
However, there are hello.
I didn't realise it would still generate it if you had a spelling mistake. So that's really clever.
Yeah. It is quite good in that regard in some ways. In other ways, it's not so great for literacy, where we're kind of going, oh, wait a minute here. And it's also quite interesting to see if you change that, whether it'll create different images. If you've got time, you can have a wee bit of a play about with that. But what I wanted to talk about these things was using style and composition and how that might affect it. So for example, I might say I want to create a claymation character with a motorcycle and a dog in a sidecar. Okay. Now, hopefully you can tell who I'm talking about there. But what I can also do is I could create something in the style. I can actually put a reference image, and it doesn't copy the way the individual looks, but it will use that image as a reference. So let's take the image I have of Toby, because this is something you can do but shouldn't do, right? You can, when I say reference images, even though you can upload an image of yourself or of a learner, I wouldn't encourage it, right? So that's another way that you could be doing this with your learners, is talking about this and saying, right, this is something you shouldn't be doing. Now, you'll notice that it doesn't really recreate the individual in the way that Google Gemini does. It uses it in that particular style. What it will do is it will have, there you go, the claymation style character kind of sitting here. That is not a recreation of the individual, right? But it does create a nice little character that you can use, because what it's done is it's essentially created it with his hair coloring, the style of his shirt and things like that. And it's not, I was trying to do Wallace and Gromit, but it didn't recreate Wallace and Gromit. Even if I was to say superhero with a, let me see, a 50s pop culture a superhero with a blue suit and a red cape. Yeah. So again, when you're going through this, I wouldn't, just because we can upload the reference image doesn't mean that we really should be. The reference images would be more if they have drawn a picture on a piece of paper and they take a photograph of it, they can use that as a reference image to recreate it in the style using AI. And there we go. You see what it's actually done is it's copied the style of the image, right? So with that image of Toby, it was more a head and shoulders picture. So that's what they've done here, is they've recreated it within a head and shoulders style approach. So there's a few different ways. You'll also notice that the individuals don't really look like anybody, right? They are AI generated, and it would be the same if I was to remove this and change this back to auto and maybe change it to digital art and tap generate. Let's see how that changes the look of it. So again, the approach that we are taking here, the responsible use we are taking, is we are not using images of anybody else to reference what we want this to look like. We are not using the names of any individual. We're not using the names of well-known superheroes or well-known claymation style characters. The moon looking for crackers. We are simply using our text to generate an image that we can use in some other way, in some other shape, in some other form. And I can even start to combine some of these different AI tools together. So if everybody's happy to kind of go away from the ethics, I think we've covered that.
Martin.
If everyone's happy. Hey, Susan.
Sorry. Miss McNidder said that some of our colleagues were using it with learners in the classroom, but the learners couldn't save their images. Now, I've just logged on with my learner account and I can download the image I've generated, and I can also share it using a link, and it's a view-only link. So I would imagine that would be the same for learners in Renfrewshire.
So what you don't do is you don't sort of tap on it. The way that we would have done this previously. Hello.
So sorry to interrupt. It wasn't the image generated aspect of it. It was the animation. When we were chatting more, it was the voice. Animate characters project function. So they can create it, but every time they try to download it, it says it's to do with the memory.
Was it on a Chromebook?
So,
yes.
Right. Well, I'm on a Chromebook, so let's see. Aye, let's take a wee look. I know I'm not Renfrewshire, but I'm on a Chromebook, so let's see.
And Graham's also mentioned there might be a problem with the memory in Chromebooks. So yeah, maybe sharing with a link might be easier.
That might be. So let's take a wee look at that. No, absolutely fine. We'll go through that wee process, and then we'll look at some other stuff if that's okay. I think everybody, I don't want to bore everybody on a Wednesday afternoon just talking about what you shouldn't do, and I think we've all got a handle on what we shouldn't do. Let's look at what we can do to make learning that little bit more engaging, and make sure if there are any roadblocks like you're saying there, that we can get over it. So you were talking about animate a character. So let's take a wee look at that. We know how this works. We spoke about this last time. We'll go just as a wee refresher. Animate your character is that kind of way. And I'm running this on a Chromebook. So I'm going to tap on Magnuson. This should hopefully work. I'm going to tap enhance speech, change my background, and just make it a dungeon. It'll take a wee sec, and let's record, see how we go. What I love about this though is you could have them talking in the classroom. So you could take an image of your blank classroom, upload the image, and have that as the background. I love that. I think that's absolutely superb. Let's just go transparent. Right, tap record. Allow, well, visit this. My name is Magnuson the Viking. I first visited Scotland way back when... I can't remember, it was that long ago. Let's tap done. Apologise for the bad voice I've got there. There is a reason folk used to call me Mr. Tumble, and I don't think it was a compliment. Right, so that obviously works on any device, iPad, Chromebook. The issue we seem to be having is obviously what we're going to do when it comes to downloading it. So as both Susan and Pam says, there are multiple ways that you can download. You can either download it as that video file, you can either grab it as a link and put it somewhere. You can either put it into Google Classroom, or you could put it into Teams. You can just copy the link and put it into even a book creator project and kind of do it that way. But let's see something with the memory. Now, my Chromebook is it's an older Chromebook. It's a 2019 Chromebook, I think. Still going strong. That's one of the beauties of Chromebooks, is it's all web based. So but the main issues you're saying is maybe the memory, or just maybe the browser is struggling a wee bit. So what might be an idea is having all other tabs closed, maybe only one person doing it at a time. I don't know. It's grasping at straws, but there's strategies that you can employ as you're kind of doing this. Maybe only there might be certain areas of the class or certain areas of the school where it will cope a wee bit better. Sometimes, because you can obviously save the project in Adobe, sometimes completely shutting down the Chromebook and doing a restart, and then opening it up and just going back in, that can sometimes clear the cache. Even clearing your internet and browsing history, that can also clear that, because obviously Chromebooks are all web-based, and if there is a bit of history on that, they can maybe cause that to I call it the Three Stooges syndrome. Essentially, what you've got is all the traffic trying to go through the one door. And if it's too bogged down, if there's too much happening, nobody's going to get through. So it's sometimes just I know we sometimes laugh about folk in IT saying if you tried switching on and off again, but there is a reason that we say that, and that's because it will essentially just clear that backlog and just allow everything to flow through the way it should. I've not got the best internet in here, so it might just take a wee second, Pam.
Yeah, and I think what I was going to say there was, so we're in the fortunate position of having upgraded all our Wi-Fi across the estate, but of course if you're working on a 5-year-old Chromebook that's never been wiped or power washed, then you're obviously going to run into issues with that. So I've got Ross, those of you on the call know who Ross is, so Ross is working on a wee set of instructions around power wash that he's going to share with everybody, so that if they are running into this, and I can see people on the call saying like they've power washed it and it solved that problem, because as you're aware, these Chromebooks these Chromebooks, some went out, some went home during COVID, etc., so they've been around for quite a wee while, and they may just be full up, as we say. So I think there are ways around that to get the benefit of it.
I think that's an important point. I mean, that is the thing with Chromebooks, is they can be brilliant, but when they get sort of too full with stuff, that can just
that's
cause.
When we start to see the issues. I think, like, so in terms of that, then I would be interested. I'm trying to. I can't remember who said it. I've forgotten. Miss McNidder, no, was it Mrs. Harkness tried it? Hiya. Sorry, I can just see his on my screen, and I'm like, I'm trying to remember who was it. Yeah. So when you did it, did you try just getting the kids? Hiya, how you doing? Oh, it's you. Hi.
Hi.
You're a Google person. That's right. You're one of our Google teachers, right? So
not Adobe, which is why we're struggling.
I know. Yeah. So when you tried to like just share it to your Google Classroom or that, what was the issue?
So it was Fidan, Mrs. Harkness, that trialled it and gave it a go, but the download function, it just says there's not the capacity or the space to download it onto the Chromebook.
For all the reasons we've just said.
Exactly. So then we try to share it through the Google Classroom, but Adobe and Google Classroom, it doesn't seem to work as a function together. One's blocked from going through the other. But you could do, as Susan said, download it as the link and then post the link on your Google Classroom, so they then could go back and find it. So it's just finding right now the convoluted way of making it work, because it's so good, but it's just finding the balance.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's the thing right now, is kind of going through that, just finding what works. We will always encounter it at home. You know, I don't know how many of you, if you get iPhones and tried to update to iOS 26 over the past couple of weeks, and you've maybe encountered that wee bit. Your phone needs an additional 5 gigs to download this. It's going to go through and remove apps, and that's just on your personal phone. So imagine what it's like on a shared set of Chromebooks across 30 kids that are, or even across a whole school. Things are going to fill up. So if Ross is creating a little bit of guidance on power washing them, then that's going to be a great thing, because every now and then we do need to, you know, folk used to laugh at me because every couple of months I would take one of my devices and I would just completely wipe it and I would start from scratch. And you would notice that your battery improved, that your storage improved. You know, I used to spend hours in the staff room. Like, I've lost countless hours in a staff room sitting with different teachers just coming up to me like it was the Apple Genius Bar, saying, I've got no storage on my phone. I've got 20 gigs of cloud storage, but I've got an 8 gig phone. I can't figure out why it's full. Well, it's because you've got 18 videos on your phone that are 30 minutes long each when you went to the Coldplay concert. That's probably going to do it. So if we clear the cache, or we upload them and they're uploaded to your iCloud, then that tends to fix it. And it's the same with the stuff that we have on our Chromebooks. If we make sure that anything that is sitting in the local files, the stuff that is actually on the Chromebook itself, then clearing that out as well, and just sort of making sure. Same with the iPads that you've got in school, just periodically go through the Photos app and just clear out some of the stuff that's in there. That will give you a huge boost in performance as we are going through, and as we are looking at different things. But I think the fact that folk are getting a start with Adobe Express is a great avenue to be continuing with. There's obviously going to be a level of creativity that can happen with that, both for you and the learners. So let's I'll see how well this works. It wasn't really liking the audio part of it, so let's just go through a wee quick example of things that we can do. So if I add, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to create a document, and I'm just going to create a cover page, because I'm going to create a book cover for something I'm doing. Now, even though I have created a document, as some of you have been seeing, you might have created an image, or you might have created a few different things. You can still use the generative AI tools. You can generate a template that you might want to use, or you can go to the media tab and you can start to add things in. So I am going to add in a background image here. So I'm going to generate an image, and I'm going to make it a portrait image, resize it so it takes up as much of the space as possible. There we go. And just center it. And I want let's not be too specific, a field with cows and trees in a bright space. I want it to be graphic, and I want it to be a palette knife. That's usually quite a nice effect. I'm going to tap generate. So I can use this to generate a background image. I can use it to generate text. I can use it to generate just a single image itself. What's quite good about this is I can pull in content from different spaces. Now, there is one thing that doesn't work on an iPad, but it works. The way you do it on an iPad is you have to create the character and then import the character, whereas on the browser, you can simply add in the individual. So I might want to edit my image. I could do a little bit more. So if I tap away and go back to it, you'll see that it pulls up these different effects. So I could change the opacity here, and I could pull it down a wee bit just so that it's kind of sitting like that. With the other various media types, I can even go to generative AI, and I could generate an image. I'm going to generate a text effect, and the text effect I'm going to generate, and I'm going to call it a day. Oh no, it's what I want it to look like. I want it to look like grass and pink flowers. And you can see there that it's just thinking. Now, activities like this, I think Ruth, you'd said that you'd signed up for some of or you'd looked at some of the creative projects that exist as you go onto that front page, and also as you look at some of the aspects that are here. You've got the things that you can learn. You've got the elements. You've got the add-ons. You've also got different aspects that you can learn as you're going through. So you can see it's coming up. I'm going to pick this one, I think. And I'm just going to call it, once it thinks about it again, I know I'm under a wee bit of time constraint here, but it goes into a bit more detail, faster than the internet. But this is probably more indicative of what it's going to be like in school when you're using the web yourself and you've got kids doing this all at the same time. So it's just making sure that there's no that you know exactly what it is. And I'm just going to say a day in the fields. And even when I have still used that text effect, it just takes a wee second to process, and it will apply it to even the new writing that I have put in. Takes a wee second because obviously it is doing a generation tool. So the AI generation within Adobe Express isn't limited to images. You can do it for text effects. You can do it for backgrounds. You can do it for, there's various other aspects that you can do as you're bringing it in together. You can even use AI to generate a template if you want to come back to this. When I tap away, so I'm obviously in the generate text field just now, but when I tap on it again, I now have the option to add in some effects. So I can go back and I can now start to add in some different aspects. So I could add in some strong shadowing if I wanted to, or I could just make it classic, make it none. If I can even animate it, I can give it a shape. When I tap on edit, I can even have the layout maybe go to an arch view. That can sometimes be a little bit nicer. Rotate it round, or I can just take the wee crosshairs and just target it a wee bit. So I can start to produce, stuff with the text. The coloring page, I could have an image as I'm looking at something. So if I come out of this a wee second, I'm going to come back into it. I could generate a coloring page. So it hasn't done the autosave yet. But I could take an image that I have created within the coloring page tool, within the drawing tool, and I can start to pull it all together. Right, so again, it's just ensuring that when you're working with the kids, that you know exactly what is available. Again, knowing is half of the battle. So these can be quite good activities to do because this is all pupil created work, and everything that you're doing in this regard is using Adobe stock images. It's not using any work that belongs to anybody else. It's not, there's going to be no sort of ethical consideration. We don't want them to obviously be uploading any images of themselves. We just want them to be using this to create as they're going through. So there are various aspects with this that can work well. The generative AI really comes down to templates, text effects, and images. That's the three main generative AI tools that you can create when you are in a, so I could create and generate an image just now, just a square one. And I could say superhero cow with a red cape in a cartoon style. So let's generate that. Now, the thing I was saying here about style, what you could do is you could use the drawing tool to generate a coloring page, color in the image, use that as your reference, okay? And then you could have something that looks a little less intimidating. However, what I could do here is there's another cool effect that I could use. So let's come away. And all I'm doing is just tapping away and tapping back because it opens a new menu when I come back. And that one is remove background. So this is just using AI tools to magically. It's using it to automatically remove the background. So it's a good tool. Some of you who have maybe used Keynote on the iPad know about Instant Alpha and remove background. But you can obviously do it in this way as well. So just creating a little sort of book cover like that could be used as a book cover that I could use next to a creative writing piece that I've done, or it could be used for a class project, any aspects of that whatsoever, or it could be used for a horror story. We've got Halloween coming up. There could be, Halloween coming up 4 weeks and Friday, but obviously it's the time of year where we're going to start pulling together spooky stories, especially in primary. Secondary, you might be doing it as a history project, or you might be doing it within an English class. So there are various ways in which you can do it and kind of take it to the next level. The Adobe Express work is obviously going to tie directly into what learners are able to do. So I don't know if it was Kenny or whoever had said that using this to talk about ethical practices with learners and making sure that they are being safe, responsible, and ethical when they're using generative AI, and just kind of saying to them that just because you are able to do something using a tool doesn't mean that you should do it. What are some of the pitfalls of doing it? What if it happened to you? What are some of the things that we might face? Obviously, we can tell that that is an AI generated image, but what about some of the others? And you could maybe introduce that as part of a lesson using the Gemini Nano Banana stuff as it's coming, as you're now able to do and go into a bit of detail. So as I'd said, that was the Adobe Express. Don't use pupil images, right? Within the Adobe Generative AI aspect. It's just not a good idea. Spoke about prompts last time. The critical thinking aspect when it comes to learners, I again mentioned this very, very briefly, but I just wanted to say Common Sense have done a bit of research with learners. And to be honest, most teenagers are aware that AI itself can give false or misleading results. What they're not so good at is spotting the fake. They're not good at spotting what has been a fake generated image, what has been a fake generated video. Sora, I don't know if you saw this yesterday, that's the ChatGPT model that has become more in depth with what it can do. The video generation tool within Google Gemini, that is also quite in depth. You can use Google Gemini to generate videos that can be, it's about 8 seconds long you can generate. So those are becoming more and more commonplace as well. So again, it's helping them spot the voices that are being used aren't 100%. They're still slightly robotic. not in the way they sound, but in the inflections, in the pauses. They pause it in appropriate times. They don't have that natural cadence in their voice that we do. So it's, you know, the ways in which you can look at what the bias is, the hallucinations, the misinformation. I mean, social media right now is just a wash with this. As I mentioned, you know, in jest earlier, Donald Trump shared an AI generated image, a video, sorry, of himself talking about something he did not talk about. He shared it to his social media platform as if he had actually created it. This is what we are dealing with in the world just now. So it's ensuring that we don't scaremonger, but being realistic with the examples that we are using and the way in which we are sharing it with our learners. They are not daft. They know it's becoming available, but if we don't guide them, they'll start to misuse it. I'd mentioned the triple check method last time. It's a good thing to talk about with learners. What they might not necessarily have right now is the expertise, but you can start to build a bit of resilience and critical thinking with them to think about the source. If you have an armchair expert on TikTok sharing something that has clearly been AI, that is going to be less reliable than a news organization sharing it or a trusted individual. Is it plausible? You know, is it plausible that we have found alien life on another planet? Yes. Is it likely? No. Is it possible that, you know, that these types of things are going to happen? You know, there's a lot of stuff out there just now that can be scary for our young people. So it's making sure that we are being accurate with what we are sharing, and also helping them to recognize the plausibility, and they will start to develop an expertise as they go through. We have, as Pam said at the top of this webinar, we are listening to the feedback you guys are giving. So we have a few questions that have been included in this new evaluation. We're going to be giving you a new evaluation at the end of every session to see about some of the stuff that we can talk about, and it will help us inform what the next one is going to start to cover and then finish up with. And that's really it from me, Pam.
Yeah, I think there's just another slide from Susan, although she's had to drop off because I know she had another meeting. But it's really just, if you want to pop that up, about learning places. So you've already confessed to it, I'm afraid. Bridgeware, I think, were the main one that put in there. No, it's really just a plea. If you are using Adobe Express, or if you've been inspired after tonight's session to think about using Adobe Express, would you like to come along and join Martin and Susan at Learning Places Scotland with a couple of learners, 2 or 3 learners and a member of staff to come along? So if you would be interested, there's more information can be found there, and I'll send the slides out to you tonight. But if you just get in touch with me directly, I'll put you in touch with Susan and Martin. But please fill out the evaluation, because we say this every time, don't we, Martin? Because I think next time we're thinking a deep dive into Gemini. Notebook LM, I think it was. Fabulous.
Yes, we're going to take some of the documents, and actually, I know that the first session was a bit of a whistle stop tour, but we're going to take a bit of a deeper.
Available, but yeah,
absolutely.
It's totally based on what you wanted. But yeah, thanks very much, and apologies, we ran over 4 minutes, Martin. We're getting better.
I know. Sorry, folks. It was just
I
when
think we
you
got
get going with this stuff, it's good fun. Yeah,
absolutely. I think so. But as I say, any questions, and I will get the recording sent out, but I'll send on the slides and everything, but please fill out the evaluation. All right, fabulous. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to stop the recording. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.